Hello and welcome to the Money Street. Bill Gates, one of the richest and most powerful person in the world, has recently warned of a new threat that, according to him, could put the world and the global economy in check. In fact, Bill Gates has begun to sell all his stocks in his portfolio and has warned us that this new risk could be worse than the recent crisis we have experienced and that we should act decisively. In this video, I will show you what is this new threat that worries Bill Gates so much and the additional reasons he has given for being very negative about certain sectors of the economy and some of his investments, including the shares of the famous company Tesla. Bill Gates has played a very relevant role during the last crisis in 2019 and warned that we could live a crisis very similar to the current one, and nobody listened to him. He predicted how that crisis could be solved, and again no one paid attention to him. He has also demonstrated to have an excellent eye for investments, as he invested in the early stages of companies such as Novavax or BioNTech. In fact, in some interviews, he even predicted that Pfizer together with biotech would be the first company to develop a solution against a current problem. Bill Gates has become the richest person in the world after founding the company Microsoft at a young age. What many people do not know is that currently Microsoft shares only represent 2% of his wealth and that he has diversified much of his money to other sectors and publicly traded shares. During the last few years he has proven to have a high percentage of success in the investment world, given his high knowledge of certain sectors of the economy and technology in particular. For this reason his movements are closely followed by all investors globally. Recently, during the annual security conference held in Munich, he was asked which factors worried him the most at present, and Bill Gates answered the following: "It is certain that we will have another pandemic in the future, only this time it will be with a different pathogen." In addition to this new risk he mentioned this new threat, which worries him for the future, and which I will explain later in this video. Bill Gates seems to be acting decisively in the face of these new risks he has identified for his investments and for the economy in general. Thanks to the US stock market transparency rules, all those investors who invest more than $100 million have to make their investments public. When they buy, when they sell, and in what proportion. If we look at the most recent report we see that he has started to sell 12 of the 18 stocks in his portfolio, and more importantly he has not bought in a single new stock. Later in this video, we will look at some of the stocks that have been saved from this big stock sale that Bill Gates has done, as it can tell us a lot about his future view of the economy and these new risks. In a recent interview he did with CNBC he gave us additional data that could explain this accelerated selling he was doing of his stocks. We may not have seen the worst of this crisis yet. I am concerned about people's distrust of governments. In the next crisis we would have to act in less than 6 months instead of 2 years. That's why we need to trust governments. Social networks must be regulated, as they are contributing to generate division in society, but also in the economy. These statements he has recently made may explain why he has started to sell most of his technology stocks in his portfolio. Despite being a great connoisseur of the sector, if we look at Bill Gates' capital movements we see 3 very interesting factors that I will detail below. Firstly, he has focused a sale of his shares on cyclical companies or companies with high fixed costs, such as Caterpillar or John Deere shares. These stocks are characterized by being very sensitive to the economic cycle, and when the economy turns or problems arise, which may be what Bill Gates is worried about, they tend to go down more sharply than the market in general. Secondly, he has decided to sell all his shares in Google, one of the few technology companies he held in his portfolio, and since he communicated this sale to the American regulator, the shares have plummeted more than 25% in the stock market in less than 45 days. The only technology company that he holds in his portfolio is Microsoft, with just 2% of his total assets. This has undoubtedly been another very wise move on the part of Bill Gates, having reduced his exposure to technology companies over the last few months. It is worth noting that in the first 5 months of the year alone, the Nasdaq index of companies has plummeted by more than 30%. If you are enjoying this video and want to be aware of new videos, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. It is important to not underestimate Bill Gates and his deep knowledge of the technology sector. Last year he also got rid of all his shares in Alibaba Group, the famous Chinese company, just in time when it was trading at $225 per share. Today, a year later, it is trading at less than $90. Undoubtedly another very wise move that has helped Bill Gates to preserve capital. The third very interesting move in his portfolio is that he has decided to sell stocks related to the transportation sector. shares in which he had invested at very low levels and which had had an excellent performance in the stock market, which has helped to have very good profitability. And as you know the saying that is often said in the stock market, trees do not grow to the sky. Specifically, he has decided to sell its shares in UPS and FedEx, which are two of the largest global transportation companies. He has also decided to sell its shares in Canadian Pacific Railway, which is one of the largest rail transportation companies. Another big news that Bill Gates has recently made is that he has started betting against Tesla shares, the company founded by the famous entrepreneur Elon Musk, who has become the richest person in the world thanks to the impressive performance of Tesla shares in the stock market. It is curious to see how Bill Gates, despite being a great defender of climate change and renewable energies, does not like Tesla shares nor its founder, with whom he has had strong confrontations in social networks. It is also known that Bill Gates drives an electric car, but curiously, it is Tesla's competitor, specifically the Porsche Taycan. Tesla shares are currently listed under the ticker TSLA, a price of about $680 per share. Despite giving investors a lot of joy recently, they have plummeted by more than 50% on the stock market, again demonstrating Bill Gates' important investment acumen. It is difficult to know what reasons may have led Bill Gates to make this courageous decision, but one of them may be related to the high valuation that Tesla's shares reached on the stock exchange. It is very important in the investment world not to confuse a good company with a good investment. This is exactly what Bill Gates experienced in his own flesh. During the previous technology bubble in the year 2000, Microsoft shares were expected to grow at a high rate over the next few years. However, due to the high valuation at which they were trading, the shares plummeted by 50% in the stock market, and it took more than 12 years for them to recover their previous level. Today, Tesla shares are trading at more than 50 times earnings, a very high price, compared to the market average of 16 times earnings, even though the company is still growing at a good pace. Although Bill Gates has mentioned this new threat that worries him so much for the future, he is a very intelligent investor and knows that, even if there are problems in the economy in the future, he cannot be in liquidity because inflation would wipe out his purchasing power and that of his wealth. If we look at the few stocks he has decided to keep in his portfolio, they are companies in very predictable and very defensive sectors, so if there is an economic crisis, they would be among the companies that would be least affected. And of course he has decided to exclude all technology companies, which are precisely the worst performers in this current environment. The first stock he have decided to keep in his portfolio is Ecolab, which trades in the US under the ticker ECL at a price of $159 per share. Ecolab is a simple and easy to understand business, but it has a very high competitive advantage, which has made it progress in the stock market in different economic environments. This company is dedicated to the sale of products and services related to water treatment, sanitization, and disinfection, mainly for companies. This is a sector in which one competes on the basis of reputation and on the basis that the company has been operating in this market for many years. And that's a good thing, because a competitor like money can't steal market share. This has caused the company to increase more than 20-fold in the stock market over the last 20 years. In the following graph that I have obtained from the company's presentations, we can deduce why investors and Bill Gates like it so much. We see how the company has grown its earnings per share very predictably and very steadily, at rates of more than 10%. The company's excellent performance in crises such as 2008, 2011 and 2020 stands out. It is curious to see how at present the shares of this company have fallen in the stock market by more than 30%. If we compare it with the 2008 crisis, which was much more severe than the current one, the shares only fell a little more, by 40%. The company will also benefit from the new regulations being introduced by governments on water treatment and respect for the environment. For this reason, the company expects to grow at higher rates than it has historically, specifically at more than 15% per year for the next few years. If we look at the company's valuation today, we see that it is trading at 29 times trailing 12-month earnings, which compares positively with the average of the last 5 years, which has been around 33 times earnings. Having studied these factors, we can deduce why Bill Gates has been motivated to keep this company's shares in his portfolio going forward. I will take a second to remind you that if you are enjoying this video and want to be aware of new videos, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Bill Gates' next favorite stock is Waste Management, which trades in the US under the ticker WM at a price of $155 per share. Waste Management is the leading waste management company in the US. Again, a traditional sector that is very predictable and very resistant to crises. Another investment that is in line with Bill Gates' negative view of the future. The current trend towards waste recycling and respect for the environment will undoubtedly benefit this company and the entire sector in general. In fact, in the following image obtained from Google, it is estimated that the waste recycling market will continue to grow well above the gross domestic product at a rate of 9% in the coming years. It is precisely in North America where this market is expected to grow the most. This company has also had an excellent performance in the stock market over the last few years. It has multiplied more than 60 times in the stock market due to the high competitive advantage it has, since once it controls a certain region or area, it is very difficult for other companies to compete against waste management. It is curious to see, moreover, how the stock market has plummeted nearly 20% over the last few months. However, these stocks have been saved from this bear market. Once again, another lucky break for Bill Gates. Waste management shares are currently trading at their historical average valuation, which is around 26 times earnings. Turning to the new threat that worries Bill Gates, in a recent interview with Jeremy Hunt he mentioned that he is very concerned about attacks related to strains of smallpox that could be spread on a massive scale in airports, stadiums or shopping malls. In fact, Bill Gates has already begun to warn governments that they should create a new pool of more than $1 billion a year to control and monitor this new risk which, according to him, could have serious effects on society and the global economy. Another recent move that Bill Gates has made within his portfolio, and which has proven to be very successful, is to have begun to sell the shares of the famous Walmart company, which has plummeted on the stock market due to recent supply chain and inflation problems, which could have caused huge losses. The other two businesses that he has decided to keep in his investment portfolio are the shares of Canadian Pacific and Coca-Cola FEMSA, which is the national bottling company of Coca-Cola for Mexico. Another very defensive and very predictable business that is in line with the more conservative attitude that Bill Gates is currently taking with his investments. Another of the big moves that Bill Gates was making outside of the stock market world was the massive accumulation of farmland. In fact, he has become the largest landowner in the USA. Another move that has been very successful just before this rise in food and food prices and this inflation that we are having globally. I hope this video has been useful for you and that you have learned how one of the most powerful and wealthy persons in the world invests. If so, let me know in the comments and I will continue to create similar content in future videos. Thanks for watching The Money Street and don't forget to click the subscribe button for more financial videos.